We sure do live in uncertain times. Times of deception. This is really most certainly a time of deception. And in fact, it's easier to deceive people today than it is to convince them they have been deceived. And this is an outcome of a Bible prophecy that Jesus Christ said about 2,000 years ago. In Matthew 24, the apostles and Jesus was walking by the Jewish temple, and old Judas Iscariot was oohing and ahhing about the building, and then Jesus said, well, every stone's going to be brought down someday. And so the apostle, when's that happening? And when's the sign of that coming? And what's the sign of the end of the world? And the answer Jesus gave was, be not deceived. You see, take heed that no man deceive you. So, deception is the first sign of the closeness of the coming of Christ. Now, the most effective ministers of deception or deliverers of deception, he gives in the next verse, for he says this, for many shall come in my name saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. In other words, religious leaders, pastors, rabbis, professors, priests, are the most effective deliverers of deception. By good words and fair speeches, they deceive the hearts of the simple, it says in Romans 16. In verse 11 of Matthew 24, it says, and many false Christs shall rise and shall deceive many. You see, what deception really is, it's just a simply twisting the truth. And the reason why God allows deception to become rampant like this is because this is how he can discover who sincerely seeks after him. Because deception is often taking a truth and twisting it. And so, but if you dig into it, then you might discover the truth. 1 John chapter 4, verse 6, the second sentence says that, hereby we do know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error. So deceit is the act of causing someone to accept as true what is actually false. It's twisting the truth. It's misusing the truth. It's hiding the truth. The concealment or distortion of the truth for the purpose of misleading. So deception is obviously rampant, and the frustrating thing about deception is that you learn after the fact that you got hoodwinked. Okay, be it nationally or be it individually. But that's the frustrating thing about it. But that's, of course, how we learn in life. Sometimes the deception is a minor one. Sometimes it's major. Sometimes it's short-term. Sometimes it's long-term. Okay, but in my short life so far, I very faintly remember the assassination of JFK, probably one of the top 5 conspiracies out there. But I do remember one of the first attempts by the national media, whatever, to deceive people was the fuel shortage. Do you remember the fuel shortage back in the early 70s? I was a teenage kid at the time, and I can remember hearing my wise father saying, oh, it's a hoax, it's fake, it's a hoax. And I'm like, as a kid thinking, how does he know that? Well, it most certainly turned out to be a hoax, did it not? 1974, I mean, we're running out of fuel. Here we are, 2020. Well, then later on, I remember the fear that was pushed out there. Oh, global cooling. Oh, we're going to freeze over. We're going to freeze. And then evidently Mother Nature turned the thermostat up, and so it switched to global warming. Oh, the ice caps are melting. Oh, the ice caps are melting. We're all going to die. And now it's climate change. Oh, climate change, end of the world. Yeah, you see, fear is how you control people. And the news industry are masters of creating a panic and fear. I think CNN used to be the Clinton News Network, and then it switched to the Clown News Network, but now it's the Coronavirus News Network. But, when you sit there and watch the news, you got to realize that you say, how do you know they're lying to you? I'll tell you how you know. Their lips are moving. That's how you know. You say, well, I listen to Fox News. Yeah, right. Okay, here's a statement from a former chief of staff of the New York Times, John Swinton. He was called by his peers the dean of his profession, and this statement was given in 1953. He gave a toast before the New York Press Club. 1953. Of course, we know things have gotten a lot better since then. Well, here's what he said. There is no such thing at this date of the world's history in America as an independent press. You know it, and I know it. There is not one of you who dares to write your honest opinions, and if you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid weekly for keeping my honest opinion out of the paper. The business of the journalist is to destroy the truth. Oh, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of mammon, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread. You know it and I know it. And what folly is this toasting and independent press? I know we are the tools and vassals of rich men behind the scenes. We are the jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, and our lives are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. End of quote. Boy, that man sure said the truth, did he not? A former senior producer of CBS said, Richard Cohen, we are going to impose our agenda on the coverage by dealing with issues and subjects we choose to deal with. And then another one, Richard Salent, former president of CBS News, he said, our job is to give people not what they want, but what we decide they ought to have. So that's amazing. Yeah, that's how it works. And so, just common deception. And a person just needs to know that, okay? And here, when you live in a day and age where you have so much information, but you also have so much misinformation, okay? For example, here is what William Casey said. He's a former CIA director back in 1981. He said this, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Now, we heard about this virus that came from Wuhan. There's a fellow that wrote a book back in 1983. The title of the book is The Eyes of Darkness. Here's a picture of the front cover, or the title of the book. And on a page, here's what was written. Okay, and the story is about a mother who's trying to figure out the death of her son. And this guy's explaining to her, he said this, to understand that, you have to go back 20 months. It was around then that a Chinese scientist named Li Qin defected to the United States carrying a diskette record of China's most important and dangerous new biological weapon in a decade. They call this stuff Wuhan 400. Well, because it was developed at their rDNA labs outside the city of Wuhan. 400, 20 times 20 is 400. Now, that's just interesting to me, that a person, could easily just taken that title. But the idea is that, there's deception, there's disinformation, there's misinformation. And a person needs to realize the greatest deceiver of all time is Satan. He is the greatest deceiver of all time. Now, he uses many different groups to push forward his methods. One is education. Okay, one is religion. Religion's the most effective. Okay, government agencies or government agents, they're pretty effective as far as their deception goes. Moses warned about this. Jesus warned about this. Paul warned about this. Probably the worst form of deception is self. When you deceive yourself. That's usually a reference to educated folks. Somebody's got some formal education. You find that in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. About deceiving oneself. Now, the worst, the top of deception is when God has had enough with people and God himself gets involved in the deception. You'll find that in Ezekiel 14, verse 9. There are times where God does get involved with the deception where he allows spirits to fulfill the bidding to deceive. So basically, we just follow the heed of these people and we become alert and stay alert, and we recognize, boy, we just got to seek the truth in all areas of life so that any of us and all of us can seek to overcome deception. All of us have been deceived sometime. I mean, hey, man, I'm a graduate of a public school. Yes, most certainly I've been deceived. Got deceived many times. And that's just part of growth in life. And so the thing is seek the truth. Ask the Spirit of God to guide you.